This is Don Brown. This is the second of a series of educational videos that we're going to be shooting on estate planning. Now, as I mentioned in the first introductory video, since the COVID pandemic, we've had tons and tons and tons of calls from folks asking about what they need to do to get their estate plan up to speed. And of course, as I mentioned in the last video, we introduced the 5 fundamental documents that most folks need to know about in terms of estate planning. And I'll briefly repeat those again. Those are wills, trust, powers of attorney, healthcare powers of attorney, and last is what we call the living will. And we're going to talk about every one of those documents. We're going to start with wills and trust, probably in the next video. But before we do that, I want to introduce a concept that is fundamental to every estate planning document and every notion of estate planning that folks really kind of need to understand a little bit so we know how to fit things together. And that concept is the concept of what we call probate. Probate, probate. Because probate is the area of law under which estate planning really revolves around. Now, what does it mean, probate? You've heard the phrase, I need to probate my estate, or they're going to probate the estate. Or in some courts, like in South Carolina, for example, we have probate court. In North Carolina, we don't call it probate court, but a clerk of court does the same thing. What do I mean by probate? Well, probate is a process. Probate process. It's the process by which the state, at your death, actually takes control of your property and transfers it elsewhere. Now, we hope that property is being transferred to a loved one, but it's a process under which we put our worldly belongings, in most cases, at least temporarily, in control of the state after we pass away. And we hope that our loved ones wind up with the property. I want you to think of probate in terms of two different pictures, and start with a river. And I grew up in Plymouth, North Carolina. There's a river called a river. It moves kind of slow. The Mississippi River moves slowly. We read all about Mark Twain and everything. And probate can be like either a very slow moving, smooth river, or it can be something a lot more tumultuous. It could be kind of like a rapidly moving river. Here in the North Carolina mountains and up in the whole Blue Ridge, we have a river called the Rappahannock, and there are some treacherous waters on that river. And so when we're passing our property to our loved ones at some point in the future, we're hoping for a slow, smoothing river that doesn't really interrupt what we're trying to do. So imagine, you're standing there and on the other side of the lifeline and getting ready to enter the pearly gates, but you're standing there with a barge or a raft in front of you, and on the raft are all your worldly possessions. And over across the river, there are your family members. And you want to get the property to them. Let's say you just push that property. You push that raft out of the river, and you're hoping that the force of it will cause it to drift across the river very slowly and get to the other side without moving down too much, so that your relatives can inherit everything you have. But let's say there's a very rapid river standing between you on one side and your relatives on the other, and you've got that barge and that float, you push that across the very rapidly moving river. Well, the rapids are going to take your possessions and move them down somewhere, and your loved ones may not ever see them. You see, because probate is a process under which we temporarily turn our property over to the state at death, with the intention usually of passing it to our loved ones, but not being able to guarantee it, because it is a process temporarily controlled by the state. We can't absolutely guarantee what's going to happen. And thus, estate planning comes in as we begin to put documents together to try and deal with that process as much as possible. And there are two principal documents that we're going to start with as we discuss the probate process. And one are wills. Everybody's heard about wills. And also trust. We'll talk about trust. Sometimes trust can help you avoid probate altogether. But we're going to be talking about wills and trust coming up next. But remember, probate is a process under which the government, the state, takes control of your property at death and distributes it elsewhere. You hope it goes to your family, but if you get turbulent waters, it may not. And the next lecture, we'll start talking about wills and trusts to talk about dealing specifically with the probate process. In the meantime, this is Don Brown. Our number is 704-542-2525. We're licensed in North and South Carolina. Would consider it a great privilege to serve you and your family and all your legal needs, and especially in your estate planning needs as well. Again, Don Brown, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.